Hey guys, I'm EASYCORE and I've been running a home studio for about the last 10 years, and at the start of this year, I nearly packed it all up, called it a day, and shut the doors. What I kind of want to talk about is the unglamorous side of running a business or chasing your dreams as an artist or as an audio engineer, anything where you are stepping out of your comfort zone to do something that you're passionate about but may not pay off in the long run. So a little bit of backstory, I've always been very lucky and had parents who supported me. When I first decided that I wanted to start dabbling in recording and working with bands, they let me use the downstairs area of their house to get started, so I didn't have any initial overhead costs and I could just work from the bottom of their house in this nice big downstairs area, and that worked really well in getting established, getting some work out there. So when I did end up getting my own place to work in, I already had some connections and artists and a bit of a reputation to work off. Now, I couldn't necessarily go straight into just doing audio engineering and mixing. I was also a drum teacher. I used to teach drums, go into a school, do lessons, and then I would also have kids come to my place and do lessons in an afternoon. And then when the studio side of things picked up after a few years, I was able to let that side of my business go and go straight into just focusing primarily on audio production. And I was also playing gigs and in bands and doing all of that too, but eventually I was able to move out of that stuff, so not playing covers gigs and anything like that anymore. I could just focus on the studio because it was really busy and things were really happening. So while that all sounds really great, the studio has always been on this sort of upward trajectory. Things have always been getting busier, and it's been a pretty good journey along the way. But you do have periods when you're running a studio or a business when things are quiet, and in those quiet times, it can be unnerving when you're wondering when the next job's going to come in. Will I have enough money stored aside to cover like rent and payments and things like that? You know, you really have to be careful with your money and making sure that when you do have sort of like a quiet period, you can always make it through that spot. And so then comes COVID, we had the big lockdowns, we had all that crazy stuff, and surprisingly, things were actually really busy. I had my busiest year when COVID hit because I guess everyone was at home, they were making music, they were sending stuff in, I was doing heaps of session drums, doing a lot of mixing and mastering. So that actually worked out pretty well for me. But then post-COVID, we started to see inflation rising and we had people kind of cutting back on spending, and I started to really notice a bit of a dip in bookings in the studio. And so this is kind of about 18 months ago. Things were pretty quiet in the studio, and it was a bit more quiet than what I was used to. The gaps between the jobs were maybe a little bit bigger, or the bookings were less frequent. And so while we were still getting by, there was other factors in our life that were sort of playing on things that would make the financial stress a little bit harder on us. So I'm married, I had 3 kids, and at the time we had our 3rd kid on the way, and we also had been given the news that we needed to leave the place that we were at and find a new house to move into / studio. So as we always have the studio at home. And so this kind of made things tricky. Like, it was a stressful period. And also because we hadn't changed where we were for so long, stepping back out into the market and looking for a place to rent, the price of rent had gone up exponentially, and the amount of places that were available to rent and that were kind of a viable location to have a studio in was very hard to find. It was a very stressful time, but we're very lucky that we found the place that we're in now that works out perfectly for our needs. But at the time, the cost of moving here was, 35% higher than what we were paying a week. And so we definitely started to feel the pinch, and things were still kind of quiet at the time, which meant that the last 12 to 18 months were quite stressful because my wife was on maternity leave and I was the sole income earner, and also trying to, live the dream, doing the job, being my own boss, but also finding that, this probably wasn't sustainable at the moment because there wasn't enough bookings coming in to see us kind of doing anything other than covering the cost of our living. And the cost of living example is going rampant at the moment too, like just buying groceries, filling up your car with petrol, paying your rent, insurance is going up, all of that sort of playing into the fact of running the business, and then also being like, well, I have to lift some of my prices to help cover this cost because otherwise I'm just sort of walking on a treadmill going nowhere. And then, the worry of, if I lift my prices, will I lose some clients? And, there's a lot of things to think about, and it is very stressful. Whereas I started to think, can I keep this up? Can I keep going? And do I need to just start looking for jobs, like job security? Like, it's such a big thing. I started to really think about that. Like, it would be so nice to have an income that you're going to get every week. You're going to have your sick leave. You're going to have your super paid, all this stuff that when you're running your own business, you're doing your own thing, you have to do that for yourself. You are responsible for that. You don't have any of that stuff to fall back on unless you really put it into place. I started thinking, do I need to go back to drum teaching? Like, I really didn't want to kind of reopen that avenue. And then, I started diving back into gigs. So I was playing gigs a bit more, looking for people to play with. And, I'm definitely thankful for the guys who picked me up and I got to do some extra gigs. And that definitely helped get me through the last sort of year, having that on top of the bookings while things were a little bit quieter. And so there is always that kind of moment, I think, when you are chasing your dreams and you want to like do what you're passionate about. But there's that trade-off, like you kind of come to a pinnacle, I think, where it's like, can I keep doing this? Like, I've been pushing at this for a while, is this going to be good in the long run? Or, at the end of the day, am I going to be in a worse off position than where I started? And so I was really having thoughts, a bit of doubts, and no doubts within like myself as a producer or an engineer, but maybe in the fact that like, maybe I should have been doing more marketing or, leading up to this. Like, I've always relied on word of mouth and stuff like that. Like, could I have done more to like boost myself and my career to make sure that these sort of like downtimes weren't here? But I also know that there's so many people out there doing it tough at the moment because of the cost of living, and they do have less money to spend, and they're rising interest rates, and so people's mortgages are more expensive, and they have to cut back on things that they would normally like to spend money on. Like, maybe recording is a bit of a hobby for someone, and they've decided, that's nothing that I can invest in right now. So maybe that's like 20% of clients who are doing this just for the pure love of it, who decided, I can't spend money on recording right now. So then that's a hit on my business. So there's a lot of factors into this, and I know there's a lot of people who are feeling the pinch of living right now. And so we're all looking for ways to find a way through this. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is, you might come to a point where you go, do I give up? And there's definitely no shame in giving up on something. Like, if you were like, I'm going to throw the towel in, look at something else, try something different. And I was definitely thinking a lot about that. But I also am a pretty stubborn person too. And I thought it's kind of like one of those moments where it's, you either give it in, pack up the bags, maybe jump on job search, go find something, choose a new career path. And I just decided, no, I'm gonna knuckle down, and I'm going to start looking into finishing off stuff like my drum samples. So I started working on my drum sample pack maybe 5 years ago. And I'd always be like, I'm working on these drum samples. They're going to be really cool. And then I would never commit to finishing them because I'd had so many mixes and jobs to do that I just prioritized that, and I didn't feed any attention into this thing that I was passionate about, but I just didn't want to commit time to because I wasn't sure whether it was actually going to be anything that would pay off in the long run. And so while I did have this quiet time in my business in the last 12 months, I thought this is the time to commit. So I really focused on finishing off my drum samples. I jumped online, looked at how to build a website, looked at how to host it, looked at all that stuff, and sort of just looking at ways of being cost efficient about it too. What's the best method of delivering things? There's a lot. I'm a very I have to know everything before I commit. So, I spend a week learning how to build a website and then do it. So if you're really passionate about something, you will find a way. You'll get it done. And I think I'm very grateful to all of you guys. So I just wanted to say thanks to everyone who has been watching these videos and tuning in, because this has been a bit of a new venture for myself, doing the YouTube videos and going back into kind of an educational role where I was doing the drum tutoring, and now it's kind of feeding back into kind of mix tutorials and showing you how to do things that way, and sort of just little lessons on processing stuff. And I've seen a lot of comments where you guys are like, you're a really great teacher. And I really appreciate that, because I think that feeds back to my drum teaching. Like, so I've spent so long tutoring people, and I think it's really cool to see that that's still a part of me, and it still comes across well to some people, and they are enjoying my teaching style. So thanks, guys. I really appreciate that, and that you have supported this like channel. So I've only really been doing this since the start of the year and building this channel up, and it's really cool to see the familiar faces, the comments from you guys. And I guess what I'm trying to get at here is, like, if you are passionate about something, like, just keep going at it. But if you feel like you've hit the end of a wall, I don't think there's any shame in sort of just saying, I've tried this, I need to go try something else now. And so while I was very close to packing up the studio, I felt I still had something extra to do here. So I had always felt kind of cautious about mixing videos and tutorial stuff on YouTube, because I always felt like if I give away too much of what I know and what's a part of my mixing, am I devaluing myself? Because it's interesting. I've had friends who are always like egging me on, like, you should do some YouTube videos, you should do that stuff, it'll be really great. And then I have other people who say, oh, you just want to put yourself out of business, just like showing everyone what you do, like you'll lose all your clients. And so it was sort of like this battle of like, should I do it? Shouldn't I do it? And so I just decided I'm going to go for it at the start of the year. And like, for example, like the whole of January, I made $1 on YouTube. So if you think it's like a very glamorous thing, like just you're going to be raking in the coin, it's not really. It's a long journey, and it's really great to see that these videos are reaching people and that they're getting something out of it. I know this is kind of a bit long-winded. I'm sort of just like rambling on a little bit, but I kind of wanted to share a bit of my journey and like the ups and downs of like just running a business and having to be self-sustainable. Like, you are your boss. You have to make sure you got money. You got to make sure you can put food on the table. And that is a stressful thing, like, especially if you are in a position where you have a family and you need to make sure that you are taking care of them. You have to decide if chasing your dream is viable in also making sure you can care for your family and your loved ones. I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's not all glamour when you're chasing your dreams, you're trying to do something that you're passionate about. Sometimes people look in from the outside and think that you have it all, you know, you're living the dream, you're your own boss, etc. But sometimes doing that stuff means that maybe financially you're in a worse off position. You can't go on a holiday, or you can't buy that thing that you want, and it takes longer to achieve things like that. And then it can be a bit of the grass is greener. You can look over at them with their sort of like stable income. They might not be loving their job, but each week they have consistency. So I think that's a really big thing when you're setting out to do something like this, is just understanding what you're getting yourself into, because it can be challenging at times, but at other times it's amazing because I get to make music with people, get to meet new amazing artists all the time. And so there is a trade-off. And I guess I just really wanted to encourage you guys, if you are sort of like setting out on a journey to maybe run a recording studio or to be an artist and you just want to give it everything you've got, I really do think you need to just go hard and go for it, because life's pretty short and you don't really know what's coming up. So any day, like, it's kind of morbid, but any day could be your last. And so you might as well just give it a really good crack and have a good go at it. So there will be plenty of times when you feel down and out, when things aren't kind of going in your way. And that's just a pretty natural thing when you are chasing a goal or a dream. You know, you have these moments where it's all excelling and doing really well, and then it kind of goes down into that little trough and you start to feel like, am I doing the right thing? Like, I'm down in this valley, and like, are we going to get back up the other side and keep progressing? And I think if you really keep pushing, setting goals that are achievable, just keep working at it, be stubborn, keep going, and you will start to see things paying off. I can't say everyone's going to succeed, and I can't say that maybe in another year's time, maybe I won't be here. But I just wanted to say that I think it's definitely worth going hard and giving it a good go. And I just want to say a massive thanks to everyone who has supported this channel, anyone who's jumped on my website, grabbed a sample pack, grabbed some multi-tracks, even a mix course. Like, all of that stuff means the world to me, and it's just really cool to see you guys using the stuff that I've created, and even the comments coming back just saying like, these samples are the best you've ever used, or like, that you love my style of teaching. Like, that stuff's really encouraging, and I just, can't thank you guys enough, and I really appreciate everyone who's tuning in. So yeah, just keep chasing your dreams, do your best, and it's all we can do. Thanks for watching, guys. I know this wasn't our normal kind of audio content stuff, but I just wanted to share some of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes that we don't really always talk about. And I think it's important to kind of like talk about, share these journeys, so that anyone else who is going through that kind of stuff, maybe they can relate and just be, it's not just me. Like, there are other people who are experiencing this stuff. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.